G'day and welcome to the program. I'm David Lipson and welcome back to this program, and we are of course looking forward to another big year in federal politics. Well, the Prime Minister Tony Abbott arrived back home early this morning from talks in Davos, where he used the international stage to push for a global crackdown on tax avoidance and also spoke about domestic policies, in particular the need to rein in budget spending. It seems that welfare will be one of the first areas on the operating table for a major overhaul, with figures released by the government this week that show currently we spend about $70 billion on welfare, that 1 in 5 Australians receive some form of income support, and claims as well that there has been an increase in payments on the disability support pension of 22% under the former Labor government. Now, to discuss this and the other areas important to federal politics at this minute, I'm joined by the Finance Minister, Senator Mathias Cormann from Perth. Happy New Year and thanks for joining us again on Saturday Agenda.
Happy New Year, good to be back.
First to this issue of welfare, it seems the young are going to be bearing the brunt of any potential savings when it comes to the disability support pension. Why is that?
Well, I mean, the important point to make here is that we're absolutely committed to a strong safety net for people across Australia who need that support. But by the same token, those people across Australia who are able to work should get back into work, and we would like to help them back into the workforce. We think that that's an important social, an important economic, and indeed an important fiscal reform.
How will you help them by taking away their pension?
Well, I mean, obviously, as I've said, people who need support will continue to receive that support. We are committed to a strong safety net. However, there is scope for reform in this area. For example, we don't think that people with temporary health conditions should be put onto the disability support pension for the remainder of their working lives. We want to help people who are able to work back into the workforce. We think that that is good for them, and it's obviously good for the country.
Unemployment, of course, is rising. Are there jobs for these people to actually go to?
Well, you're right. We inherited an economy from the previous government which was growing below trend with rising unemployment, which of course is why we are implementing our agenda for stronger growth and more jobs, which is why we are committed to scrap the carbon tax, the mining tax, reduce red tape, improve productivity and generally improve our international competitiveness. So there are a range of things that we're doing at the same time, and increasing workforce participation by reducing the level of welfare dependence is an important part of that agenda.
Well, Kevin Andrews this week ruled out going through the system that the UK went through, which was essentially to get everyone on the pension to reapply. That made big savings in Britain, but that's been ruled out. Does that mean if you're already receiving the disability support pension, for example, that you're safe, that you will continue to receive that?
Look, I mean, Kevin Andrews has initiated a review. That review is now on the way. I will let him talk about the detail of all of that. Suffice to say that I'm not going to preempt the findings of that review. A number of things that have been ruled out, like we're not going to touch the age pension. But as a matter of general principle, it really is the position, as I've articulated right at the outset. We're committed to a strong safety net, but we're also committed to ensure and to help people who are able to work back into the workforce.
Australia spent 8.6% of its national economic output last year on welfare. It sounds like a lot, but according to studies, of 34 industrialised nations, only Iceland actually spent less than Australia. So our spending is, well, less than every other developed country, bar none. Is there really a justification to rein it in further?
Well, you've got to look at the trajectory we're on, and this is one of the fast-growing areas of expenditure. I mean, this is in part about repairing the budget mess that we've inherited from the previous government, with $123 billion worth of deficits and government debt heading for $667 billion. But it goes well beyond that. We are committed to break the cycle of welfare dependency. We are actually committed to help people back into the workforce, which is not just good for government, not just good for the country, but it's actually good for them too.
You will, of course, be accused of a cruel hit against the country's most disadvantaged people. How do you justify it when, well, for example, the $20 million has been announced this week will be handed out for pre-marriage counselling?
Well, firstly, we reject that assertion of a hit against the most vulnerable. As I've said again right at the outset, we are committed to a strong safety net, but we want to make sure we get the balance right. Now, in relation to relationship counselling, we made commitments in the lead up to the last election to provide support to stable relationships. We're trialling a system where the government would provide a $200 subsidy initially to about 100,000 couples at a cost of $20 million. That is a trial which will start on 1 July. Once that trial has taken place, we'll assess how it has worked and whether it provided value for money, and we'll take things from there.
Yeah, look, it's not a huge amount of money by any stretch of the imagination in federal government terms, $20 million. But I thought the Liberal Party was the party of sort of government staying out of people's lives. Why get involved in this area?
Well, this is an issue that we put forward in the lead up to the last election. Indeed, it's a commitment that we made in the lead up to the last election to provide support to stable relationships and to trial this particular approach. So let's see how it works. And if it works, we'll roll it out further.
Okay, moving on to the asylum seeker issue. There have been no votes in 5 weeks. Is that, if that continues, going to mean savings in the budgets in years to come?
You're right that as a result of our policies and the hard work of our border protection agencies, Navy, Customs and others, the boats are stopping. That was one of our key commitments in the lead up to the last election, of course, having inherited an absolute mess at our borders from the previous government. Now, of course, if there are less boats, if the boats are stopping, that will lead to savings for our budget. Already last week, Minister Morrison announced the closure of 4 onshore detention centres across Australia at a saving of about $88.8 million a year. Obviously, we're looking forward to building on those savings as our policy continues to be successful.
How much do you expect could be saved if this continues?
Well, look, I mean, we'll provide an update on those numbers in the usual way at budget time. But, as an initial down payment, we've been able to achieve about $90 million worth of savings a year by closing 4 onshore detention centres already. We are very committed. We are absolutely determined to stop the boats. And, obviously, by definition, if there are fewer or no arrivals, that's going to be much more beneficial for our budget than if, under Labor we had more than 50,000 illegal arrivals over their period in government.
Will it come, though, at the expense of relations with Indonesia? We see that they have indeed soured considerably over the past month or two. Indonesian warships, we hear, have been deployed to the maritime border with radars trained south. We've heard rhetoric over the last few days reported from senior Indonesian defence figures saying that, for example, quote, a clash could be imminent. How seriously do you take that sort of language?
Well, our relationship with Indonesia is a very important relationship. Indeed, it's a very important relationship for both our countries, and Australia will continue to do everything we can to help strengthen that relationship. We have welcomed the increased focus by Indonesia on their border protection activities. We think it is a very positive development which will help curb the activities of people smugglers.
But is there an increased chance of a clash at sea now that Indonesia has deployed these warships?
Look, I'm not going to speculate on these things. You're well and truly going beyond my area of portfolio responsibility. Again, as my statement is pretty clear. The relationship with Indonesia is a very important relationship.
Returning then to your area, or closer to your area, do you expect this to impact on trade with Indonesia, which of course is a country that the government was hoping to really increase the back and forth when it comes to trade?
And Andrew Roberts, the Minister for Trade, is working very hard to reinvigorate the trade relationship with Indonesia, which of course suffered immeasurably under the previous government when they stopped overnight the live cattle export trade into Indonesia and put their food security at risk. Look, I mean, we're very confident that the relationship with Indonesia across all areas of the relationship will strengthen in the months and years ahead, and we will do everything in our power to assist in that process.
But you must admit that it has weakened in the last few months for it to be able to strengthen.
Well, I mean, in the last few months, you know, it's a matter of public record that, you know, we've had a few challenges to deal with in our relationship. But, you know, we will continue to work our way through that. And, you know, we'll continue to do everything we can to strengthen what is a very important relationship for Australia.
Well, on another matter, the first report from the Commission of Audit has been delayed by a couple of weeks. Why has that happened?
Well, I mean, the commissioners asked the government for an extension, and we granted them that extension. I mean, it's important to note that the deadline that we imposed on the commission was always a very tight deadline. When the commission put that request to us, you know, we said, yep, that's fine. It's important. It is very important for us that the commission gets its report to us right, and if that needs another 2 weeks, that's fine by us.
Has the government seen any draft report and perhaps given any further recommendations in order for that to happen?
Well, I can't talk for everyone across government. I've just come back from 2 weeks of leave. I personally have not seen a draft report. I don't think that anyone in government has seen a draft report, incidentally. I don't know whether there is a draft report. The Commission is doing its work independently, of course, as we speak. And again, I mean, the objective is for the reports from the Commission of Audit to feed into our budget process, and the budget is not due until the second week of May, so receiving the Commission of Audit report in the middle of February will work just fine.
It does, of course, push it out beyond the Griffith by-election. There have been suggestions that it may have something to do with that. What's your response to those suggestions?
Well, I mean, that's just you know, Bill Shorten's conspiracy theories. I mean, there's always an election somewhere in Australia. There'll be an election there'll be a couple of elections in March, and there'll be more elections later in the year. And look, the government continues to work carefully, methodically through a whole series of challenges that we've inherited from the previous government, including a budget in a mess. We're committed to repairing the budget. The Commission of Audit work is a very important part of that. We're not going to be distracted by you know, Bill Shorten's conspiracy theories.
Finance Minister Senator Mathias Cormann, great to have you back on the program. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Always good to be here.